Well, today most people don't even know anything about U.S. history, but it's beyond U.S. history. It's actually what is the lifeblood of the nation, because where we came from is the lifeblood of the nation. It's our DNA code, if you want to put it that way. I want to emphasize something that's probably little known by many people, even know something about the American Revolution of 1776. If it was not for the French, if it was not for France, we would never have been an independent nation. No way, no how. It would have been impossible. Not only was it the Battle of Yorktown, which was the decisive battle where Cornwallis surrendered a major British army, that really was the entire war right there. Yes, Valley Forge and other things that happened in the favor of the American Revolutions happened prior to this, but they pale in comparison to what happened at Yorktown with the combined forces of the French and the USA. The French had loads of forces there, and it was not for them, and also their expertise in military strategy and campaign, we would not have won. As a matter of fact, Washington was all for a frontal assault, and that would have been heavy on casualties. The French actually advised that, and I think, I know Washington was the overall commander, but when you're looking at some of the experienced French commanders who were there, I think that might have really been a title. This was really a French victory more than anything. Now today, you'll see a lot of anti-French or anti-French sentiment, and part of it goes back to something I'll tell you about a little bit later. But this was a commemorative flag that was actually made for the combined efforts of France and the USA. It was Benjamin Franklin who actually lobbied France for years. He was staying in France, and the French were pouring money and arms into the United States, the American revolutionaries, and loads of money. I mean, it wasn't just a drop in a bucket. It was loads of money. It was actually causing the French government to go broke. Now, I know partly they were doing this because it was to get back at their enemy, Britain, and wasn't just out of the love of their hearts. I know this 100. There's always another reason behind it. But if it was not for France, we would have never been an independent nation. There would have been no U.S. Constitution, no Bill of Rights, and this entire experiment that actually seems to be going towards imperialism in the last 150 years, since the South lost the war for independence, this entire experiment in human history would have never happened. There's never been so much freedom in the human, where humans lived or habitated than in the United States. Despite some of its flaws, there's never been so much freedom. This would have never happened without the French. Now, if you look at this previous flag here with the U.S. flag, and you can look, it's got six-pointed stars. Kind of reminds you of the, Star of David. I mean, maybe that's, I don't know if you like that or not, but I thought that was cool. And you look at this emblem on the top of the 13 stars. This was actually the French flag at the time, the French banner. Okay, those three shields. Where's the French banner? So here we have George Washington firing the first shot. His commemorative painting. George Washington was a very good, commander, of course, and he was good at. He's very patient too. Very patient man. Somebody that did not lose his temper, and he was very good at keeping various units together that were from divergent parts of the nation because of the way he commanded. He was actually an excellent commander, but the French, if it was not for the French commanders even setting up the battle plan at Yorktown, whereby they would do a siege on Cornwallis's army, that would have, George Washington was a great leader, but it was actually the French that actually really put the plan into motion at Yorktown. So this monument to Yorktown was authorized back in 1781, but it was not even begun for 100 years and was started the centennial celebration of victory in 1881. So they authorized the monument, but they never had money to put the monument up, which is almost ludicrous when you start thinking about some of this thing. But it was an alliance between the United States and His Most Christian Majesty, which talking about France, right? The His Excellency General George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Forces of America and France, to His Excellency Count de Rochambeau, commanding auxiliary troops of His Most Christian Majesty, which is France, in America. Count, I know they say Comte, that's actually Count, I mean it's Count actually, in France, it's French I think it's Comte. Count de Rochambeau, he was an expert military strategist, extremely good. And this is why the siege and battle of Yorktown was won by the French and Americans. It really was, if it wasn't for the French, forget about it. Forget about it. If it hadn't been for the French cooperation, the war would have likely been lost, a fact not known by many Americans. As a matter of fact, it's guaranteed the war would have been lost, because before Yorktown and before even other military, direct military help that the American Revolution was receiving, the American Revolution was receiving loads of money from France. They just didn't, not worth the Continental. The money being issued by the Continental Congress wasn't really buying anything. It was the French money. It was the francs, whatever they had at that time, gold or silver. So, here on, it's got inscripted on a monument. It was a siege in October 19, 1781. So Cornwallis was down in Yorktown, and why Cornwallis got screwed up over here was because the General Clinton, who was the overall commander of the British forces in the United States. General Clinton was in New York City. He was partying, sleeping around with officers' wives. It sounds like the modern day Clinton, but there's no relation between Bill and General Clinton from the British. But General Clinton was the overall commander in the British Army at this time, and he was living he captured New York. He was living a life of luxury, and Cornwallis was asking Clinton for reinforcements. That's why Cornwallis stayed put. Cornwallis didn't screw this up, and Clinton didn't give him the reinforcements till at the very last minute they started sailing after Cornwallis was already strangled with the siege. The French plan was to just encircle them. They had the ships of the line, and it was to encircle them and starve them off to force them into surrender, and that worked. The French, good thing the French were, I know Washington was the combined general commander, but if Washington's plan went, there would have been a direct frontal assault with heavy casualties taken by the French and the Americans. This way it worked out much, much better. So, I'm not knocking George Washington, I'm just saying that, we really de-emphasize how much the French helped us. It's amazing. There wouldn't be an America without France. There wouldn't be a Bill of Rights, none of that. George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Forces of America, and His Excellency Comte, in other words, that means Count Comte de Rochambeau, commanding the auxiliary troops of His Most Christian Majesty in America, France, right, and His Excellency Comte de Grasse, commanding chief of the Naval Army of France of the Chesapeake. So they had, I forget how many ships of the line. There was loads of them. They had their best man-of-war ships out there. And also, look at this. This is another very important point. This is right on there. And this was inscripted. Remember, this was erected in it was authorized in 1788, but it wasn't put up until 1888, right? Now, you remember, this was, almost 20 years, over 20 years, 23 years after the war between the states was fought over rights of the states to secede, right? And you had a Supreme Court supposedly start saying, because it was a rigged Supreme Court, saying that states can't secede. They have no independence, right? Now look at this. This monument was actually put up 23 years after the war between the states. And here it says, His Britannic Majesty acknowledges that the said U.S., United States, vis New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island and Providence plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, he's naming all of them, right? Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, to be free sovereign and independent states. That should tell you right there that each state is an independent sovereign and is independent and sovereign. This monument, this inscription was put it was authorized in 1788. It wasn't done until 1888, 23 years after the war between the states. And here they're acknowledging on the inscription itself that these states are independent and sovereign. You know, another one for the South. The South is right, but, you know, right, who has the might is right. That's what happens, you know, even if you are right, correct in whatever you postulated. The treaty concluded on 1778 between the USA and King Louis XVI, King of France, declared the essential and direct end of the present defensive alliance between the USA and France, because everything was accomplished, you know. So, you know, this is the monument itself that's in Yorktown, and like on each four of the sides of the monument, those are the descriptions I read. So you can read the description on there. That was, like, again, this monument, even though it was authorized in 1788, was not put up till 1888. And it's interesting that they would put up on the monument that the colonies were free and independent sovereign states. When they described this 23 years after the war between the states, where they said that you had no right to secede from the centralized authority. And here they're telling you, it's freaking just blows your mind. I mean, it's amazing. So, it's like they tell you one thing, and then here they inscribe and marble something else, right? So, but again, it was, I'll also emphasize too, why did the the propaganda go against the French later on in modern times? Well, I could say a lot of it started in 1973 when Nixon went off the gold standard, and what was going on was the gold reserves were being depleted in the United States, because back at the time you could trade your dollars, $35 for an ounce of gold. And so the French were saying, we want the gold. We don't want these dollars. And that was under Charles de Gaulle. So all of a sudden, the propaganda is the French are evil, the French are this, what it is, because they didn't want to give them the gold. They wanted to give them paper money. That's really a large part of it changed right there. France has always been our ally, so I don't know what the heck's going on. It does bother me that it's like, I can see right through the propaganda that why they're so anti-French today. I mean, it's like, I'm not me. I just could see it from some of the powers that be behind the scenes. Some of it started in 1973. Sometimes I'll hear a conservative say, "Oh, the French this," and I'm like, that's why conservatives sometimes aggravate the heck out of me. They don't even understand that, our whole country wouldn't exist if it wasn't for France. But beyond that, the political unity of the country is not what I'm really talking about. The one thing I really think that the best that came out of the birth of the United States was the Bill of Rights. If we didn't have that Bill of Rights today, God, we'd be living in a gulag country. It'd be 1,000 times worse than what you think it is today. It's just the fact that it's embodied in law at the constitutional level, that you have freedom of speech, freedom of exercise of religion, freedom to bear arms, the right to due process. There's just so many things that have been embodied in that Constitution, where it's not limiting what our rights are, because it even says that just because some rights have not been enumerated in this Bill of Rights doesn't mean that they're not, inherent in the rights of people that exist in nature or by God. And again, this was the battle. I'm looking at the battle map, so you can look at, the British basically were surrounded here, because by sea, if it wasn't for the French Navy, hang it up, because the Americans really didn't have a Navy. I mean, John Paul Jones had that one raiding ship, and he went off the coast of England and he actually did sink they would consider him a pirate, but then he actually sunk a British warship, not a large one, but was more comparable to the size of John Paul Jones' ship, and that really made him a bona fide, sailing naval vessel of the United States at that time. So, you know, see, he wasn't just pirating; he was actually did engage a you know, not one of the ships in the line, but a ship of comparable size to John Paul Jones, and he won the battle. But if we did, you know, if the French had all these warships, if they didn't have all these warships, the British could have easily just escaped the noose because they were right here on the water. But the French warships blocked their escape. So they did a siege. They were making, you know, ramparts and pulling up the cannons and firing into the French, and then they would get closer and closer and closer. And here Cornwallis is asking Clinton, General Clinton up in New York, who's the overall commander of the British forces, for help. And Clinton saying, yeah, we'll get you the stuff. And meanwhile, he's carousing around with the ladies and the officers' wives and drinking and partying and living luxuries and living in the 4 luxury houses in New York, and he doesn't give them the help. This definitely wasn't Cornwallis' screw-up. But again, I mean, it's not just the amount of troops on the ground that the French put to us. It was the Navy. We didn't have a Navy. The British had the greatest Navy in the world. And the only one that could challenge the British Navy would be the French Navy. The French sent their best ships to this conflict. They sent their best ships to this conflict. So, and what happened was there was a global war going on. This conflict, what happened was it wasn't just over here in the United States. As soon as the French started allying with the revolutionaries in America, there became outbreaks of war all across the globe between the French and the British, everywhere. And that took resources, so the British couldn't concentrate all their resources in America then. It's like 15 ways from Sunday that if it wasn't for the French, we definitely wouldn't have been a nation. No way, no how. So we owe France everything. I'm sorry, you know. That's the way I look at it, man. So, people don't realize that today. People don't realize that today. It's unfortunate how France is getting invaded today. We should be helping them out. But you know, as far as, you know, history, a lot of it, you know, most people don't even know. Like, if you go on the street, most people don't even know when the heck what happened during the American Revolution. They have no clue of anything. And it's not just a history book. It's not just like dates and facts and stuff. And it's like how, you know, the human experience is. It's like the history of the nation is our DNA. Actually, what they're doing is by, you know, de-emphasizing certain parts of history or changing it all around, they're basically changing the DNA makeup of our nation. That's what they're trying to do, re-engineer us. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but kind of difficult to say. But, you know, I wanted to put this out because I always liked the French, man. You know, Tour de France, too, I'm a big fan of that. Even before Greg LeMond was around, you know, they used to have the guy running the bicycle, the bike, what is that guy? I forgot his name. The cannibal. He'd like, not because he ate people. They called him a cannibal. This was in the bicycle racing, because he would gnaw away at a person's lead till he finally overtook him, and then he would win. You know, Eddie Merckx, right? Remember him? And I don't know. I like both France and Italy, so what can I tell you? So, and also you got these great vending machines over in Paris. I don't know how it is today, but you can get wine over there cheaper than you could buy mineral water. And to me, that's another great thing about France. I don't know. I'm just ad-libbing here a little bit, but I don't know. You know, I can tell you, there's been a propaganda effort against France. It really started in 1973 when, you know, Nixon closed the gold window and France was trying to get their to change the dollars that they held for gold, like the agreement was. And they said, no, you can't. You got to keep that paper money. And it's like, you know, the leaders of the United States seem to want to make France jump through a hoop every time they want something. You know? And if they don't jump through the hoop, then, oh, they're the bad guys. Well, I'm kind of pissed off at that stuff, to tell you the truth, you know. So, but most Americans are being conditioned to be a little bit of anti-French. I'm not. I can tell you that right now. So, I got the utmost respect for the French. So, anyway, just figured I'd point out this little-known bit of history here. If it was not for the French, it wouldn't have been any doubt we would have definitely lost the war with Great Britain. It would have been a put-down revolution. George Washington would have been hung, and the whole thing would have been done. That's what would have happened. That's how important the French were to us. It's not even any doubt. They were providing, before this Battle of Yorktown, they were providing other help militarily. They were providing arms. They were providing materials. They were providing money. Plus, they took a lot of heat off of the that the American revolutionaries were undergoing by causing a worldwide conflict between the French and the British during this time. So the British had to take resources and move them to other parts of the world. Hands down, there's no United States without French help. Hands down. And it was Benjamin Franklin that was really orchestrating getting the French to help us. It wasn't for Benjamin Franklin. The guy was a smart guy. He really knew what he was doing. Now, if you look back later on, it didn't quite work out that way. But Judah P. Benjamin, the brains behind the Confederacy, the Jewish guy, he was trying to orchestrate, get help from the British to help the South in 1861. If that would have worked out like that, the South would have been an independent nation. And we would have had a constitution that put a lot of fiscal restraints on the government. And you wouldn't see the big oligarchs of America in the Northeast and the robber barons, none of that would have came about. Probably would not have been a World War I. There probably would not have been a World War II. There would not have been a Bolshevik Revolution because that was financed by people out of the Northeast and money powers. There probably would not have been a Holocaust. There probably would not have been a Hitler. There probably would not have been, Russia would never got taken over by communism. The South winning the war which was another American Revolution, if that would have happened if Judah P. Benjamin was successful in negotiating with Britain, as Benjamin Franklin was successful in negotiating with France. But you know what happened? Abe Lincoln short-circuited him with his emancipation, which was strictly a political move, not a humanitarian move. So a lot of people don't realize, if we look for that's why breaking away from the modern central government we got today, some of these people think they can do that. That ain't going to happen unless you have some kind of outside help. I mean, the outside help today, I don't know who it would be. Russia, maybe? I don't know. Hey, Vlad, you want to help us out here in Dixie? I don't know, man. But, I mean, really, the South almost won in 1861, 1860. They were pretty close to breaking away. They were doing better than the American revolutionaries were in the beginning. But they didn't get any outside help. That was the problem. If the South got outside help in 1861, 1865, and the British fleet broke Lincoln's blockade, it had been over with. And it wasn't like they were just trying to break away. They weren't trying to take over the central authority. It wasn't a revolution. They were, they call this the American Revolution. This was the American separation, basically. That's what it was. That's all it was. Just trying to get the heck away from the central power. And later on, as I had lived here a little more, if you think about it, the way people used to get away from the central power was they used to just go west. because they didn't give a damn what was going on back east, you know. If you're out there in the prairie on your homestead, well, you got other things to worry about. You don't even care what's going on back east, right? That was the way they got away back. That's the way they broke away from the Central Power back then. Now today, with all our lines of communication and transportation and all this other stuff, you can't get away from anything, especially when you got a smartphone on you all the time, right? Anyway, over and out. Went on here a little bit too long, but I figured I'd push out. I actually wanted to bring in some of Blake angles, you know, because I don't want this just to be like blah blah history lesson, but it also, you know, kind of like how it relates to today. Everybody wants to be independent, right? Everybody wants to live their own life, free and unencumbered from a central authority. And if you think you want to freaking have a central authority take care of all your problems, then they own you and then they enslave you. You don't want that. That's where a lot of people are making a mistake today. Okay, over and out.